Let's take a closer look at one of our 3 hand building techniques, coil. Coil involves taking snakes of clay and stacking them on top of each other to make forms. Sculpting with coils allows you to make curving, funky forms. First, you'll need a base, and there are multiple ways to make a base for your coil form, and one is just to roll out a pancake of clay that's pinky thick, and decide on the size circle you would like to cut out of that clay. I'm going to go with a medium-sized circle there, and then use a fettling knife to cut out a nice circular base. If you want to have a funkier shaped base, you could draw out that shape. Any simple curvy shape will work, and then you can cut that shape out, roll out another slab of clay that's pinky thick, and cut out your custom base. And there we have another base. You can also begin building with your coils straight on top of a piece you already have. I'm just going to start wrapping coils right on top of this rectangular prism, and you can build up that way. Say you wanted to build with coils off of the end of a pyramid, or maybe on top of a cube that is still kind of delicate. In that case, you can actually begin building your coils without a base at all, as long as you can start with a nice neat ring, and then build up from that ring, and eventually you can attach that to the top of the piece. But this allows you to build with your coils without having to potentially mess up the piece that you're working on top of. You can make a custom base without it having to be a crazy funky shape. For example, if I wanted the base to fit these 2 legs, I may make an oval shape that would fit them. So I'm going to roll out a pinky thick slab of clay, set the legs on there, and design a base around those legs in kind of an oval football kind of shape. I'm going to draw it first lightly and then use the fettling knife to cut it out. And there I have a custom oval-shaped base that I can build off of to make the body. Once you've got your base, you're ready to start rolling out coils. Take a piece of clay the size of a tater tot and roll it out in your hands a little bit, and then set it down on the board and begin rolling it out into a pinky thick snake using long, light rolls. If you roll in short rolls or you press too hard as you roll, you'll end up flattening out the coil and turning it into a plank. Keep rolling and check your thickness as you roll. That is about thumb thick or finger thick, so I need to keep going, keeping it even and neat. Until I get a coil that is pinky thick, even, and perfect. As you roll out your coils with long light rolls, you want to do it pretty quickly so that it doesn't dry out. If your coil dries out, it'll break when you try to wrap it around your form. As you roll, if you notice it getting a little dry, go ahead and dab some water on it to keep it from drying out. Once you have a good coil, you're ready to attach it. You can see how it's going to lay onto the base like that and spiral upwards, but first you have to scratch the coil, dab with water, and press your coil into place. As your coil wraps, let it lay on top of the previous coil, but make sure you scratch that one, dab with water, and then press it on, and let your coils spiral upwards. It's important to press each coil on neatly and firmly. Build up till you have about 3 coils, and then stitch the inside to make it even stronger. Brace with one hand and draw lines across the coils with the clay tool with the other. If you have a funky shaped base, just do the same thing, but wrap the coils neatly around the base in the shape of the base, pressing the coil on to make sure that it's well attached. And remember to brace and stitch and smooth as you build up every 3 coils. The coolest part about sculpting with coils is they allow you to build your forms out and in and back out to create undulating, funky shapes. You can see here how I built it out and then back in and then back out again to make a really interesting shape. To do this, you have to control the position of your coils as you stack them. To make your coils go in, you stack them a little bit to the inside of the previous coil, making smaller and smaller circles as you go up to get something like that. To make your coils go out, you stack them slightly to the outside of the previous coil in larger and larger circles as they go up. As you build with coils, it is very important to use your hands to brace and support them as you sculpt. You can see here how I'm squeezing and holding and supporting the shape just to make sure that everything is strong and supported. As I add new coils, I'll use one hand to add it and press down, and the other hand to support and hold up what's already there. It is especially important to brace when you're stitching. You can see how that left hand is holding and supporting the walls as the right hand stitches. That will keep your piece strong and looking good. Another thing to keep in mind is that it is normal for your coils to crack as you wrap them around your piece. You can see there some pretty big cracks on the sides of my coils. Don't stress if that happens, just go ahead and continue attaching it, and then make sure you stitch it on there really well and press it down firmly. And those cracks should close up, or even if they're still there, they'll fill in with glaze later, and they won't really be an issue. Once you've finished building up your coil form, you may notice that the top of it is uneven, and it may have a low spot. We want to make that even with the high spot. So roll out another coil, and then fit that coil just into the low spot, not all the way around, but just in that spot that needs to be lifted up a little bit, like that. Then scratch it, dab it, press it on, stitch and smooth it, and you will have a finished coil form. Remember that you're working with clay, so it's never too late to use your fingers to adjust the coil form. You can poke parts out a little bit if they fell in. You can tighten up some of those smaller areas if they start to expand. And you can really use your fingers to form this piece into exactly what you're imagining, as long as you keep it pinky thick, strong, and neat. Once you've finished your coil form, it's also an option to go ahead and stitch and smooth the outside if you would like it to have a smooth look. I usually like the look of the coils, but if you're imagining a nice smooth surface, then go ahead and stitch and smooth it. Now you know how to make any coil shape you can imagine, so go ahead and get your base started and build up those coil forms.